Hey there! You're watching the Jessa Channel live on YouTube. Today is Wednesday, July 11th, 2018, and we are going to bed to sleep. Today we're going to be reading Beatrix Potter. So I did this a few months ago, and I was looking for a stream to do, kind of a midweek impromptu stream, and I said to myself, the thing I really want is to listen to some games. So did I just say that? I said that. I meant listen to some books. Okay. So give me a heads up in chat if you can hear me. Everything should be good, hopefully. So let me know if you can hear me in chat. Raise your hands. And we're going to go on over to the desktop because I already have our books ready to go. The story we're going to be reading a couple of stories. Thank you, Tyler. Awesome. Thank you. We're going to be reading The Tale of Peter Rabbit first, and there's also illustrations to go along with it. And I'm going to have the music on in the background really low. Real quiet like, to kind of accompany our music. But first of all, let me know, and even for those of you watching later on YouTube, Let me know what you have to drink. Let me know if you're in your pajamas. Let me know if you're comfortable in bed with your stuffed animal or your dog or your cat or your little sister. But let me know if you're comfortable and cozy. So, we're going to get started on reading today. I decided to do this around 6 p.m. It's a little early on the Pacific Coast to go to bed, but I wanted to do it at a time which would be good for people on the East Coast. And maybe for some of you really late night people over on the West Coast of Europe. So, I'm going to put onto the screen now. I'm going to lower OBS. And I'm going to turn on the game. Hi, Patrick. I just said turn on the game. I'm so used to playing a game. I'm going to turn on the music. You are? Oh, good, Tyler. I'm so glad you could come and visit with me today. Hi, Patrick. I bet your cats are getting pretty used to hearing my voice. If I ever met your cats, all I'd have to do is speak and they'd say, "It's the lady! It's that lady!" You're watching Doc McStuffins, and your son is working your mind and your nerves. Ah, motherhood, it's a beautiful thing. So, let's get a sound check. I don't have any mods in. Wow, this is the first time I don't have any mods here, but that's because we just did a really impromptu one. Kind of an awkward time. One of my mods is sick. The other one is still asleep, and she's actually the one who's sick. She's in Australian time. And one of them's asleep. One of them's at work. And the other one, I don't know where she is. So give me a sound check. That should be nice and backgroundy, not too distracting from the story. So let me know how things are going, how they sound before I go ahead and start reading. So this is everything sounds good. Okay, good. Okay. I have here some juice just by my side. Thank you, Tyler. Thank you, Carrion. So I have some juice here. I'm wrapped up in a blanket. I just had some dinner. And we had bacon wrapped chicken. And these kind of hush puppy potatoes, puffed potatoes. And my husband isn't home yet, and so the cats have eaten, and we're all cozy here. So let's get started. I'm going to maximize the screen here so that you can better see the illustrations. And I invite you to sit back. Tray tables are up, seat backs as well. Crafter, you're funny. You provide me with much deep amusement. Okay, so I have maximized the screen here. I have chat over here, which you're gonna see, but I'm gonna keep it kind of down here so it won't block too many of the illustrations. I'm gonna keep it kind of small. Everything should look good on your end, I hope, on your end. So let me know how things go. Give me any feedback in order to improve the stream. Let's go. The Tale of Peter Rabbit. The Tale of Peter Rabbit is Beatrix Potter's first and most famous book. Initially written for the young son of Potter's former governess, Annie Carter, in 1893, the work was rejected by a series of publishers before being privately printed in 1901. Followed by Frederick Warne and Company publishing the tale in October of 1902. It centers on the disobedient young rabbit Peter, who is told by his mother not to enter Mr. McGregor's garden because he might be captured and killed. No! So that gives you a little bit of the tale of Peter Rabbit and the time frame of it. And it is now one of the most well-loved children's stories in the world. This is the first initial copy of the Tale of Peter Rabbit. This is probably worth millions now, this book. But the initial 250 copies published privately for the author. In 1901, Potter sent her manuscript of the Tale of Peter Rabbit to at least 6 publishers, only to have it refused by each of them. She made the decision to print the book herself, whilst continuing the search for a publisher who would issue the book as she wished. The Tale of Peter Rabbit by Beatrix Potter. This is Potter close to the time of publication. Once upon a time, there were 4 little rabbits, and their names were Flopsy, Mopsy, Cottontail, and Peter. They lived with their mother in a sandbank underneath the root of a very big fir tree. "Now, my dears," said old Mrs. Rabbit one morning, "you may go into the fields or down the lane, but don't go into Mr. McGregor's garden. Your father had an accident there. He was put in a pie by Mrs. McGregor. Now run along and don't go into mischief. Get into mischief. I'm going out." Then old Mrs. Rabbit took a basket and her umbrella and went through the wood to the baker's. She brought a loaf of brown bread and 5 currant buns. So you can see Mrs. McGregor here is giving a basket to her little baby girls, and then Peter has his jacket on, tied up nice and tight. And then Mrs. Rabbit is going to the baker's. I'm glad you like the pictures. I made sure to get a version that had the pictures, the original pictures. These books are illustrated, if you don't know, by Beatrix Potter. Flopsy, Mopsy, and Cottontail, who were good little bunnies, went down the lane to gather blackberries. But Peter, who was very naughty, ran straight away to Mr. McGregor's garden and squeezed under the gate. First he ate some lettuces and some French beans. Then he ate some radishes. He stuffed his greedy little self. And then, feeling rather sick, he went to look for some parsley. Look at him squeezing his fat little bottom right under the gate. But round the end of a cucumber frame, whom should he meet but Mr. McGregor? Mr. McGregor was on his hands and knees planting out young cabbages, but he jumped up and ran after Peter, waving a rake and calling out, "Stop, thief!" Peter was most dreadfully frightened. He rushed all over the garden, for he had forgotten the way to the back gate. He lost one of his shoes among the cabbages, and the other shoe amongst the potatoes. After losing them, he ran on 4 legs and went faster, so that I think he may have gotten away altogether if he had not unfortunately run into a gooseberry net and got caught by the large buttons on his jacket. It was a blue jacket with brass buttons, quite new. I think old Mrs. Rabbit's going to be quite upset with him for wrecking his jacket. Peter gave himself up for lost and shed big tears, but his sobs were overheard by some friendly sparrows, who flew to him in great excitement and implored him to exert himself. They said, "Cheep, cheep, cheep, cheep." Mr. McGregor came up with a sieve, or maybe a sieve or a sieve, which he intended to pop upon the top of Peter, but Peter wriggled out just in time, leaving his jacket behind him. And he rushed into the tool shed and jumped into a can. It would have been a beautiful thing to hide in if it had not had so much water in it. There's Peter. He's in a can with water, and there's his little ears right here, sticking out of the can. Mr. McGregor was quite sure that Peter was somewhere in the tool shed, perhaps hidden beneath the flower pot. He began to turn them over carefully, looking under each. Presently, Peter sneezed. Kerchie-shoot! And Mr. McGregor was after him in no time. He tried to put his foot upon Peter, who jumped out of a window, upsetting 3 plants. The window was too small for Mr. McGregor, and he was tired of running back after Peter. He went back to his work. Peter sat down to rest. He was out of breath and trembling with fright. He had not the least idea which way to go. Also, he was very damp with sitting in that can. After a time, he began to wander about, going lippity, lippity, not very fast, and looking all around. He found a door in a wall, but it was locked, and there was no room for a fat little rabbit to squeeze underneath. An old mouse was running in and out over the stone doorstep, carrying peas and beans to her family in the wood. Peter asked her the way to the gate, but she had such a large pea in her mouth that she could not answer. She only shook her head at him. Peter began to cry. The old mouse tried to say, "The gate is that way," but she couldn't because she had a big pea in her mouth. Then he tried to find his way straight across the garden, but he became more and more puzzled. Presently, he came to a pond where Mr. McGregor filled his water cans. A white cat was staring at some goldfish. She sat very, very still, but now and then the tip of her tail twitched as if it were alive. Peter thought it best to go away without speaking to her. He had heard about cats from his cousin, little Benjamin Bunny. Maybe sometimes cats weren't very nice to rabbits, but that's a very pretty kitty. And there's little Peter back there. Peter is in a lot of trouble. He went back to the tool shed, but suddenly, quite close to him, he heard the noise of a hoe. Scritch, scratch, scratch, scratch. Peter scuttered underneath the bushes, but presently, as nothing happened, he came out and climbed upon a wheelbarrow and peeped over. The first thing he saw was Mr. McGregor hoeing onions. His back was turned towards Peter, and beyond him was the gate. Freedom! Peter got down very quietly off the wheelbarrow and started running as fast as he could go, along a straight walk behind some black currant bushes. Mr. McGregor caught sight of him at the corner, but Peter did not care. He slipped underneath the gate and was safe at last in the wood outside the garden. Mr. McGregor hung up the little jacket and the shoes for a scarecrow to frighten the blackbirds. There's like 3 blackbirds looking at the jacket and the shoes. They don't look very scared. Peter never stopped running or looked behind him until he got home to the big fir tree. He was so tired that he flopped down upon the nice sand, soft sand on the floor of the rabbit hole and shut his eyes. His mother was busy cooking. She wondered what he had done with his clothes. It was the second little jacket and pair of shoes that Peter had lost in a fortnight. When I was young, I didn't know what fortnight mean. I now understand. I believe it means 2 weeks. Mr. McGregor hung up the little jacket and the shoes for the scarecrow to frighten the blackbirds. Peter never stopped running or looked behind him until he got home to the big fir tree. Oh, I'm reading this again. Never mind. They were like, that jacket. So, thank you, Kyrian. I'm sorry to say that Peter was not very well during the evening. His mother put him to bed and made some chamomile tea. She gave a dose of it to Peter, 1 tablespoonful to be taken at bedtime. But Flopsy, Mopsy, and Cottontail had bread and milk and blackberries for supper. The end. All right, so that was the tale of Peter Rabbit. And we're going to move on to the next story. We're going to be reading Beatrix Potter for a while tonight. Let me know if you are still awake. Let me know how you're enjoying it, and let me know how the music is. I hope it isn't distracting. I hope it's relaxing. Okay, so I thought it meant 4 nights too, Kyrian, for a long time. And then when I got older and understood a dictionary and all of that, I looked it up. Finally found out that it meant 2 weeks. I wonder if it has something to do with forts, maybe? Peter was a very bad boy, but I thought maybe, I don't know, I should look this up, but I thought maybe it had to do with like how long soldiers were posted at a fort, maybe? Maybe they had shifts of 2 weeks or something like that. You just found out it means 2 weeks. Thank you for stopping by, Crafter. So this is the tale of Squirrel Nutkin. This one I really like, just because Squirrel Nutkin is so cute and I like squirrels. The tale of Squirrel Nutkin was published in August 1903 and followed Potter's hugely successful book, The Tale of Peter Rabbit. So I wonder if those other publishers who rejected her book are kicking themselves still. 100 years later, more than 100 years later, wishing that they had the foresight to publish that book. So, these little squirrels are so cute. So let's head on into the story. This is the book cover of the first edition of the Tale of Squirrel Nutkin by Beatrix Potter. A story for Nora. This is a tale about a tale. A tale that belonged to a little red squirrel, and his name was Nutkin. He had a brother called Twinkleberry and a great many cousins, and they lived in a wood at the edge of a lake. In the middle of Hello, Kiwi! And who said, "You're awake for now, but you did fall asleep in the last stream?" I know you did, Patrick, because I said goodbye to you and you didn't say goodbye, and I knew it was because you fell asleep. Hi, Kiwi. We're reading Peter Rabbit. Well, we just finished Peter Rabbit. Now we're reading Squirrel Nutkin. I hope you're in your pajamas. If not, go run and get in your pajamas. In the middle of the lake, there is an island covered with trees and nut bushes. And amongst those trees stands a hollow oak tree, which is the house of an owl who is called Old Brown. One autumn, when the nuts were ripe, and the leaves on the hazel bushes were golden and green, Nutkin and Twinkleberry and all the other little squirrels came out of the wood and down to the edge of the lake. Aw, it's a squirrel picnic. They made little rafts out of twigs, and they paddled away over the water to Owl Island to gather nuts. Look at those little rafts. Oh my gosh, that is so cute. Wow, that is so cute. Each squirrel had a little sack and a large oar. Spread out his tail for a sail. That's so cool. That is so awesome. I don't know, I just really love this picture. They also took with them an offering of 3 fat mice as a present for Old Brown, and they put them down on his doorstep. Yucky, mice, yucky. Then to eat them. Twinkleberry and the other little squirrels each made a low bow and said politely, "Old Mr. Brown, will you favor us with permission to gather nuts upon your island?" But Nutkin... Aw, thank you, Kiwi. Well, I am sort of professional. Kind of. In a sort of backwards kind of way. I hope you're enjoying it, Kiwi. But Nutkin was excessively impertinent in his manners. He bobbed up and down like a little red cherry, singing, riddle me, root toot tote. A little wee man in a red coat, a staff in his hand and a stone in his throat, and if you'll tell me this riddle, I'll give you a groat. I don't know what a groat is. Does anyone know? Now, this riddle is as old as the hills. You like my funny British accent? I'm doing my best. Now, this riddle is as old as the hills. Mr. Brown paid no attention whatever to Nutkin. He shut his eyes obstinately and went to sleep. Wow, Nutkin is just rude. I mean, you go over to somebody's island and ask to borrow nuts and, Nutkin is just rude. He's gonna get his comeuppance, I think. The squirrels filled their little sacks with nuts and sailed away home in the evening. But next morning they all came again to Owl Island, and Twinkleberry and the others brought a fine fat mole. Wow, that poor mole. And laid it on the stone in front of Old Brown's doorway and said, "Mr. Brown, will you favor us with your gracious permission to gather some more nuts?" Let's see what old Mr. Brown has to say to that. But Nutkin, who had no respect, began to dance up and down, tickling old Mr. Brown with a nettle. Can you believe that? A nettle. And singing, "Old Mr. B, riddle me ree, hitty pitty within the wall, hitty pitty without the wall. If you touch hitty pitty will bite you." Mr. Brown woke up suddenly and carried the mole into his house. He shut the door in Nutkin's face. Well, if that ain't just the rudest thing ever. I think Nutkin deserved that kind of treatment, really. Presently, a little thread of blue smoke from a wood fire came up from the top of the tree, and Nutkin peeped through the keyhole and sang, "A house full, a hole full, you cannot gather a bowl full." The squirrels searched for nuts all over the island and filled their little sacks. But Nutkin gathered oak apples, yellow and scarlet, and sat upon a beech stump playing marbles and watching the door of old Mr. Brown. Nutkin is just, you know what? I think Nutkin needs a spanking. Honestly, I'm gonna turn that squirrel over my knee. Give him a spanking and send him to bed without any supper. On the third day, the squirrels got up very early and went fishing. They caught 7 fat minnows as a present for Mr. Brown. They paddled over the lake and landed under a crooked chestnut tree on Owl Island. Twinkleberry and 6 other little squirrels each carried a fat minnow. But Nutkin, who had no nice manners because obviously his mother did not bring him up correctly, brought no present at all. He ran in front singing, "The man in the wilderness said to me, 'How many strawberries grow in the sea?' I answered him as I thought could, 'As many red herrings as grow in the wood.'" But old Mr. Brown took no interest in riddles, not even when the answer was provided for him. On the fourth day, the squirrels brought a present of 6 fat beetles, which were good as plums in plum pudding for Old Brown. Each beetle was wrapped up carefully in a dock leaf, fastened with a pine needle pin. Now, if that isn't just the nicest gift a person could ever give another person, I just don't know what is. Hi, Heather. Well, you know, Kiwi, I can't help it. I'm a role player and I'm just a Let's Player at heart. I'm always going to add a little extra to the story. Hopefully it adds something to you. Heather, happy birthday. Consider this to be your birthday present from me, okay? Because you are the one who asked me to read some more audiobooks. And so this is your birthday present, okay? But Nutkin sang as rudely as ever. Old Mr. B, riddle me ree, flower of England, fruit of Spain, met together in a shower of rain, put in a bag tied round with string. I'll tell you this riddle if you give me a ring. Which was ridiculous, of course, because Nutkin, because he had not got any ring to give to Old Brown. See, he was just making stuff up. The other squirrels hunted up and down the nut bushes, and Nutkin gathered Robin's pincushions off a briar bush and stuck them full of needle pins. Look at that. He gathered Robin's pincushions. I think that's like maybe a bunch of robin's fur that got stuck to a briar bush, has prickles on it. And then he stuck them full of pine needle pins. Can you believe that? Huh. I'm really hoping this squirrel gets his comeuppance. On the 5th day, the squirrels bought a present of wild honey. It was so sweet and sticky that they licked their fingers as they put it down upon the stone. They had stolen it out of a bumblebee's nest on the tippity top of the hill. Do you know how much work that is to go all the way up a hill? Grab some bees, if you're a squirrel, mind you. One good sting and you're done for the day. But Nutkin skipped up and down singing, hum a bum, buzz buzz, hum a bum, buzz. As I went over Tipple-Tine, I met a flock of bonny swine, some yellow-nacked, some yellow-backed. They were the veriest bonny of swine there ever went over Tipple-Tine. You know what, Squirrel Nutkin? The plot thickens. Old Mr. Brown turned up his eyes in disgust at the impertinence of Nutkin. But he ate up the honey, because honey's good. And everyone loves honey, well, most everyone, except for, well, some very, very crotchety people. But Mr. Brown, he loved honey. In fact, I think he had some leftovers of mole from the night before, so he dipped the mole leftovers in the honey and ate it on a pine needle like a little hors d'oeuvre. Pretty good. The squirrels filled their little sacks with nuts, but Nutkin set up a big flat rock and played 9 pins with crab apples and green fir cones. Isn't that neat how you can play bowling with crab apples? And look at that. He just stood up the little pine cones. It's awesome. On the 6th day, which was Saturday, the squirrels came again for the last time. And this time, they brought a new laid egg. Wow. They just went over the top with the gifts this year. Over the tops. And a little rush basket. And one of the squirrels, they sat there and they actually weaved the little basket that morning. And they gently placed the fresh egg in it as a last parting present for Old Brown. But Nutkin ran in front laughing and shouting, Humpty Dumpty lies in the back with a count. Let's try that again. Humpty Dumpty lies in the back with a white counterpane round his neck. 40 doctors and 40 rights cannot put Humpty Dumpty to rights. And he tra-la-la'd and he tiptoed around and he just laughed and sang. Now, old Mr. Brown took an interest in eggs. He opened one eye and shut it again. But still, he did not speak. And all the squirrels, look at they've climbed right up his fur. They're kind of brave. Isn't honey yummy? Raw clover honey. So good. Nutkin became more and more impertinent. Old Mr. B, hickamore, hackamore on the king's kitchen door. All the king's horses and all the king's men couldn't drive hickamore, hackamore off the king's kitchen door. Nutkin danced up and down like a sunbeam, but still Old Brown said nothing at all. Nutkin began again. He's learned a lot of impertinent songs. I mean, in the impertinent songbook, Nutkin knows like at least 2/3 of all the songs in the impertinent songbook. And in the rude songbook, he knows at least half of them. Arthur O'Bower has broken his band. He comes roaring up the land. The King of Scots with all his power cannot turn Arthur of Bower. Nutkin made a whirring noise to sound like the wind, and he took a running jump right onto the head of Old Brown. Then all at once there was a flutterment and a scufflement and a loud squeak. The other squirrels scuttered away into the bushes. When they came back very cautiously, peeping round the tree, there was Old Brown sitting on his doorstep, quite still, with his eyes closed, as if nothing had happened. But Nutkin was in his waistcoat pocket. Oh my goodness. I need to take a breath. That's just so intense. Well, this looks like it's the end of the story and Nutkin became lunch. But it isn't. Oops. One too far. Overclicked. So Old Brown carried Nutkin into his house. And, come on, images. There you go. But it isn't. Okay. There we go. Okay. Old Brown carried Nutkin into his house and held him up by the tail, intending to skin him. But Nutkin pulled so very hard that his tail broke in two, which I can tell you from personal experience is extremely painful, and you have to go to the chiropractor every week for 4 months. Anyway, he dashed up the staircase and escaped out of the attic window. And to this day, if you meet Nutkin up in a tree and ask him a riddle, he will throw sticks at you and stamp his feet and scold and shout, because you know what? He hasn't got a rude song in him. That scared all the rude songs right out of him. The end. I think Squirrel Nutkin got a very, very good lesson. And you can see here, this is his brother over here, his brother Twinkleberry. And look at all of their nice fine tails. But Squirrel Nutkin has a knobby tail for the rest of his days. Made him quite irritable. But it's okay, because later on he got married to a lovely lady from the other end of the wood. And they had 2 little babies, and it turned out just fine. Don't worry. Okay, so now we're going to move on. If you're still awake, Tell me if you like Squirrel Nutkin's story. So this one is a good story. No more twist. The Tailor of Gloucester. And I hope I'm saying Glouster right. It's not Gloucester or Gloucester or Gloucester, because I am not sure. And so, the Tale of Gloucester was private. That was so suspenseful. Glouster. Okay, thank you, Kyrian. I was going to ask you, but I wasn't sure if you were still awake. Well, you know what? Squirrel Nutkin really, I think that's really a tale of, you kind of get what you deserve. You know what I mean? Oh, there is? And I really feel like he kind of earned that. Okay, so The Tale of Gloucester was privately printed in 1902. And it was published in 1903. So I can imagine that a first edition copy of Peter Rabbit, wow, must be worth so much. And Annie Carter Moore's daughter got the book for Christmas. So, yeah, wow. It's amazing. Anyway, let's go ahead and enjoy The Tailor of Gloucester. This is the first edition. There's a mouse sitting there reading the paper, sitting on a spool with scissors, which he'd better be careful because they're very close to his tail. And some string and a thimble. The Tailor of Gloucester by by Beatrix Potter. I'll be looking at charges for a looking glass and entertain a score or two of tailors. From Richard III. My dear Freda, because you are fond of fairy tales and have been ill, I have made you a story for yourself, a new one that nobody has read before. And the queerest thing about it is that I heard about it in Gloucestershire, and that is true, at least about the tailor, the waistcoat, and no more twist, which I think is like a type of ribbon. A twisted up ribbon, I think. Twist. All right, The Tailor of Gloucester. In the time of swords and periwigs and full-skirted coats with flowered lappets, maybe lapels, anyway, flowered lappets. When gentlemen wore ruffles and gold-laced waistcoats of paduasoy and taffeta. Not sure what paduasoy is. That's an interesting one. I'll put that in chat so that you all who are listening can see what I'm talking about later on. Lapels. Yep, that's it. Lapels. Thank you. Can you believe it? Kyrian's first language is not English. And my first language is English. I have no excuse. So I think that is Padua soy. That's a word I've not, besides in this book, I've not seen before. But Padua soy and taffeta, there lived a tailor in Gloucester. He sat in the window of a little shop in Westgate Street, cross-legged on a table, from morning till dark. All day long, while the light lasted, he sewed and snippeted, piecing out his satin and pompadour and lutestring. Stuffs had strange names and were very expensive in the days of the Tailor of Gloucester. But although he sewed fine silk for his neighbors, he himself was very, very poor, a little old man in spectacles with a pinched face, old crooked fingers and a suit of threadbare clothes. Aww, that is sad. He cut his coats without waist. Kyrian, I do not at all. Please do continue. Particularly because lapels, I know how it's pronounced, but when you're reading, and sometimes, when you're recording, not all of your brain is available because you're doing so many things at once. So I think they call it streamer's brain. He cut his coats without waist, according to his embroidered cloth. They were very small. They were very small ends and snippets that lay about upon the table. 2 narrow breasts for naught, except waistcoats for mice. Waistcoats for mice. This is a hard to read story, said the tailor. Oh, look at this mouse. This picture I love. When I was a little girl, I used to look at this picture over and over again, and this mouse, so delightfully dressed up, with matching shoes, a beautiful frilly dress. One bitter cold day near Christmas time, the tailor began to make a coat of cherry-colored, corded silk, embroidered with pansies and roses, and a cream-colored satin waistcoat, trimmed with gauze and green worsted Chanel for the mayor of Gloucester. The tailor worked, and he talked to himself. He measured the silk, and he turned it round and round and trimmed it into shape with his shears. The table was all littered with cherry-colored snippets. Page turn, there we go. No breath at all, and cut on the cross. It is no breath at all. Tippets for mice and ribbons for mobs for mice, said the Tailor of Gloucester, because I think he was maybe going a little bit senile, a little bit of Alzheimer's or something. I'm not sure. Anyway, when the snowflakes came down against the small leaded window panes and shut out the light, the tailor had done his day's work, because he didn't even have candles to work by. All the silk and satin lay cut out upon the table. There were 12 pieces for the coat, and 4 pieces for the waistcoat, and there were pocket flaps and cuffs and buttons all in order. For the lining of the coat there was fine yellow taffeta, and for the buttonholes of the waistcoat there was cherry-colored twist. Ooh, cherry-colored twist. And everything, that sounds sort of like candy, cherry-colored twist. And everything was ready to sew together in the morning, all measured and sufficient, except that there was wanting just one skein, do not know how to pronounce that word, skein, of cherry-colored twisted silk. The tailor came out of his shop at dark, for he did not sleep there at nights. He fastened the window and locked the door and took away the key. No one lived there but little brown mice, and they run in and out without any keys. For behind the wooden wainscots of all the old houses in Gloucester, there were little mice staircases. It does. Every time I say it, it sounds like I want some dessert. Cherry twist sounds like ice cream, Kyrian says. For behind the wooden wainscots of all the old houses in Gloucester, there were little mouse staircases and secret trapdoors. And the mice run from house to house through those long, narrow passages. They can run all over the town without going into the streets. But the tailor came out of his shop and shuffled home through the snow. He lived quite nearby in College Court, next the doorway to College Green, and although it was not a big house, the tailor was so poor he only rented the kitchen. Oh, goodness. He lived alone with his cat. It was called Simkin. Oh, look at Simkin. Oh, look at the baby. Oh my gosh, so cute. Look at that baby. Anyway. Now, all day long, while the tailor was out at work, Simkin kept house by himself. He was also fond of the mice, though he gave them no satin for coats. So, Simkin kept house during the day. That means he would catch mice, sounds like. Meow, said the cat when the tailor opened the door. Meow. The tailor replied, Simkin, we shall make our fortune, but I am worn to a raveling. I've always liked that phrase. I'm worn to a raveling. Take this groat, which is our last fourpence, and Simkin, take a china pipkin, and buy a penny worth of bread, and a penny worth of milk, and a penny worth of sausages. And, oh, I love how he sends his cat out to go shopping for him. That's something I need to train my cats to do. Go to the store. And oh, Simkin, with the last penny of our fourpence, buy me 1 penny worth of cherry-colored silk. But do not lose the last penny of the fourpence, Simkin, or I am undone and worn to a thread paper, for I have no more twist. Hi, Morgwin. Luke, go to the bakery and pick up some rolls. Amen. My baby Luke he's so cute. Right now, he is tucked up into a tiny little ball. Exactly. Into a tiny little ball. He heard his name. He opened his eyes. And then he's closing them again. He is in a tiny, tiny little ball, all curled up on his he has a homemade knitted cat bed type thing. He's so glossy and black, and he's just laying there after dinner, all tucked out. Then Simkin said again, yeah, and took the groat and the pipkin, which I think is like a milk jug maybe, and went out into the dark. Now, I'm guessing about pipkin, but I think that's what it is. Hi, Morgwin. So we are, as you know, we're listening to some Beatrix Potter and feeling very relaxed. You missed the tale of Squirrel Nutkin. Squirrel Nutkin was very naughty, but he got his comeuppance. He did. It was very exciting story. Okay, so the tailor was very tired and beginning to be ill. Oh, he sat down by the hearth and talked to himself about that wonderful coat. I shall make my fortune to be cut bias. The mayor of Gloucester is to be married on Christmas Day in the morning, and he hath ordered a coat and an embroidered waistcoat to be lined with yellow taffeta, and the taffeta sufficeth. There is no more left over in the snippets that will serve to make tippets for mice. Then the tailor started, for suddenly interrupting him from the dresser at the other side of the kitchen came a number of little noises. Tip-tap, tip-tap, tip-tap-tip, tip-tap, tip-tap, tip-tap-tip. Now what can that be? Said the Tailor of Gloucester, jumping up from his chair. The dresser was covered in crockery and pipkins, yellow patterned plates, and teacups and mugs. Hi, Benny! The tailor crossed the kitchen and stood quite still beside the dresser, listening and peering through his spectacles. Again, from under a teacup came those funny little noises. Tip-tap, tip-tap, tip-tap-tip, tip-tap, tip-tap, tip-tap-tip. This is very peculiar, said the Tailor of Gloucester, and he lifted up the teacup, which was upside down. Out out stepped a little live lady mouse, and she made a most delicate curtsy to the tailor. Then she hopped away down off the dresser and under the wainscot. The tailor sat down again by the fire, warming his poor cold hands and mumbling to himself, "The waistcoat is cut out from peach-colored satin, tambour stitch, and rosebuds, and beautiful floss silk. Was I wise to entrust my last fourpence to Simpkin?" No, I can tell you right off, brother man, you were not. I mean, really, to give your last fourpence to your cat. I don't know what you were thinking. Anyway, 21 buttonholes of cherry-colored twist. But all at once, from the dresser, there came other little noises. Tip-tap, 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 tip. "This is passing extraordinary," said the Tailor of Gloucester, and turned over another teacup, which was upside down, because that's how you keep your cups. You keep them upside down, because otherwise it gets dust in them if they're out in the open. But if they're upside down, and when you take them off and serve tea in them, you don't have any dust in them. The kitty is going to spend it all on some nip. Exactly. Hi, mothering. Okay, here we go. Oh, out stepped a little gentleman mouse and made a bow to the tailor. And then, oh, I love this song. Anyway. Out stepped a little gentleman mouse and made a bow to the tailor. And then from all over the dresser came a chorus of little tippings and tappings, all sounding together and answering one another like watch beetles in an old worm-eaten window shutter. Tip-tap, tip-tap, tip-tap-tip. And out from under teacups and from under bowls and basins stepped other more little mice who hopped away down off the dresser and under the wainscot. And do you know what that means? I think they were going to the ball. I'm very glad to see you here today, Bene. I'm glad you got the message from YouTube that I was live streaming. Oh, I just got a happy feeling in my heart. I'm here with my friends, we're live streaming, and we're reading Beatrix Potter, and this lovely song is on. It's wonderful. Anyway, the tailor sat down close over the fire, lamenting, 21 buttonholes of cherry-colored silk to be finished by noon of Saturday, and this is Tuesday evening. Was it right to let loose those mice, undoubtedly the property of Simpkin? Alack, I am undone, for I have no more twist. The little mice came out again and listened to the tailor. They took notice of the pattern of that wonderful coat. They whispered to one another about the taffeta lining and about those little mouse tippets. And then all at once they ran away together down the passage behind the wainscot, squeaking and calling to one another as they ran from house to house. Not one mouse was left in the tailor's kitchen when Simpkin came back with a pipkin of milk. Simpkin, who went out with a nice warm jacket on. So I was right, a pipkin was a pitcher. So that's Simpkin coming back with the groceries. Simpkin opened the door and bounced in with an angry growl, meow, like a... Oh. My cat Luke just lifted his head to look at me. Like a cat that is vexed, for he hated the snow, and there was snow in his ears, and there was snow in his collar at the back of his neck. He put down the loaf and the sausages upon the dresser and sniffed. Simpkin, said the tailor, where is my twist? But Simpkin set down the pipkin of milk upon the dresser and looked suspiciously at the teacups. He wanted his supper of little mice. Of little fat mouse, I guessed what it was going to be. It was wrong. Simpkin, said the tailor, where is my twist? And look at, there's Simpkin like, where's my dinner? There's Simpkin over there picking up the lid of the teapot where he had put his dinner. Fat little mouse. But Simpkin hid a parcel privately in the teapot and spit and growled at the tailor as if, and if Simpkin had been able to talk, he would have said, "Where is my mouse? My mouse, I put it in here just this afternoon. Where'd it go?" "Alack, I am undone," said the Tailor of Gloucester, and went sadly to bed. Wow, these Beatrix Potter stories, they have these really like exciting plots, you know? This one is simply juicy. All that night long, Simpkin hunted and searched through the kitchen, peeping into cupboards and under the wainscot and into the teapot where he had hidden that twist, but still he never found a mouse. Simpkin was quite naughty to hide the twist. Whenever the Twit tailor muttered and talked in his sleep, Simpkin said, and made strange horrid noises as cats do at night. Yes, that's true. For the poor old tailor was very ill with a fever. I knew it. He was coming down with something. Alzheimer's or a fever. I called it. And his four-post bed. And still in his dreams he mumbled, "No more twist, no more twist, no more twist." All that day he was ill, and the next day, and the next. What should become of the cherry-colored cloak? In the tailor's shop in Westgate Street, the embroidered silk and satin lay cut out upon the table, 21 buttonholes, and who should come to sew them when the window was barred and the door was fast locked? But that did not hinder the little brown mice. They ran in and out without any keys through all the old houses of Gloucester. So this this bed here that my mouse is over, I love these old four-poster beds. I mean, imagine if you could climb into bed if you didn't feel well, and you could close the curtains around you and make a secret fort. That'd be I wouldn't mind having a four-poster bed with nice fabric. Yeah, that'd be awesome. And there was Simpkin going, "I want my mouse or some tuna or some cheese or something." Although I don't feel too bad for Simpkin because the tailor went to sleep without any dinner. And Simpkin went out and got bread and sausages and milk. And that should be plenty for any kitty, especially one who's not on a diet. Out of doors, the market folks went trudging through the snow to buy their geese and turkeys and bake their Christmas pies. But there would be no Christmas dinner for Simpkin and poor old Tailor of Gloucester. The tailor lay ill for 3 days and 3 nights. I know how that feels, brother. I was sick for the last 3 days. It sucked. And then it was Christmas Eve, and very late at night, the moon climbed up over the roofs and the chimneys and looked down over the gateway into College Court. There were no lights in the windows, nor any sound in the houses. All the city of Gloucester was fast asleep under the snow. And still Simpkin wanted his mice, and he mewed as he stood beside the four-post bed. But it is in the old story that all the beasts can talk in the night between Christmas Eve and Christmas Day in the morning, though there are very few folk that can hear them or know what it is that they say. When the cathedral's clock struck 12, there was an answer like the echo of chimes, and Simpkin heard it and came out of the tailor's door and wandered about in the snow, even though we all know that Simpkin doesn't like snow, and he doesn't like to get snow down behind his coat, and he doesn't like to get it on his tail. From all the roofs and gables and old wooden houses in Gloucester came 1,000 merry voices singing the old Christmas rhymes. all the old songs that I ever heard of, and some that I don't know, like Whittington's Bells. First and loudest of the cocks cried out, "Dame, get up and bake your pies." "Oh, dilly, dilly, dilly," sighed Simpkin. And now, in a garret, there were lights and sounds of dancing, and cats came from over the way. "Hey, diddle, diddle, the cat and the fiddle, all the cats in Gloucester except me," said Simpkin. Aw, Simpkin's sad. Look at, there's Simpkin all by himself out in the snow. Under the wooden eaves, the starlings and sparrows sang of Christmas pies, and the jackdaws woke up in the cathedral tower, though it was the middle of the night. The throstles and robins sang. I don't know what a throstle is. Your cat would climb the curtains. Throstles and robins sang. The air was quite full of twittering tunes. But it was all rather provoking to poor hungry Simpkin. Particularly he was vexed with some little shrill voices from behind a wooden lattice. I think that they were bats, because they always have very small voices, especially in a black frost, when they talk in their sleep like the Tailor of Gloucester. They said something mysterious that sounded like, "Buzz," quoth the blue fly, "hum," quoth the bee, "buzz and hum," they cry, and so do we. And Simpkin went away shaking his ears as if he had a bee in his bonnet. Simpkin doesn't like the sound of bats. Oh, nope. From the tailor's shop in Westgate came a glow of light, and when Simpkin crept up to peep in the window, it was full of candles. There was a snippeting of scissors, snapping of thread, and little mouse voices sang loudly and gaily. 4 and 20 tailors went to catch a snare. The best man among them durst not touch. She put out her horns like a little Kylo cat. Run, tailors, run, or she'll have you even there. Then, without a pause, the little mouse voices went on again. This word, I have to admit, I don't know how to pronounce. I'm going to put it in chat for you guys to see, and for those of you guys to see later. I'm going to say sieve. Sieve my lady's oatmeal, grind my lady's flour, put it in a chestnut, let it stand an hour. But before they could go on with this very interesting and lovely song, sieve, sieve. And then in chat, somebody is telling me, let's see. Throstles are a type of bird. The song thrush is a thrush that breeds across much of Eurasia. It has brown upper parts and black spotted cream or buff underparts, and has 3 recognized subspecies. Morgwin, since you are a mod, can you put a link in to a picture of a throstle if you see one, so that people watching later on can get a picture of a throstle? Thank you, Morgwin. That's one of the many reasons why I love live streaming, is that it's a group activity. So, you know, the people in chat will go and look things up for me, and it gives us more information about what we're reading about. It's like reading the book with extra footnotes with more information. Mew, mew, interrupted Simpkin, and he scratched at the door, but the key was under the tailor's pillow, and he could not get in. The little mice only laughed and tried another tune. 3 little mice sit down to spin. Pussy passed by and she peeped in. What are you at, my fine little men? Making coats for gentlemen. Shall I come in and cut off your threads? Oh no, Miss Pussy, you'd bite off our heads. Oh, cried Simpkin. Hey, diddle dinkety, answered the little mice. Let's try that again. Hey, diddle dinkety, answered the little mice. Hey, diddle dinkety, poppity pet. I think, and just between you and me, I think that the mice had had just a little bit of tipple that night, which who can blame them because it's Christmas Eve, so they had a little bit of spiced wine and some delicious mead that they got from the local bar and tavern. Hello, Muse! Welcome! We are reading Beatrix Potter and listening to cozy music in our pajamas. So go get your pajamas on, okay, Muse? If you want to, you can tweet me a picture of yourself in your jammies. If anybody wants to take a picture of themselves, Patrick sent a picture of himself with his cat on his back once. That was awesome. Ooh, image of a throstle bird. Let's put that up on the stream here for a minute. Oh, look at that. Isn't that cool? Let me make that large, a little larger. Oh, very pretty. Very pretty. Thank you, Morgwin. Let's see. Okay, so the merchants of London. Oh, here we go. It's the mice singing. Hey, diddle dinkety, poppity pet. The merchants of London, they wear scarlet, silk in the collar and gold in the hem. So merrily march the merchant men. They clicked their thimbles to mark the time, but none of the songs pleased Simpkin. He sniffed and muted the door of the shop. And then I bought a pipkin and a popkin, a slipkin and a slopkin, all for 1 farthing. And upon the kitchen dresser added the rude little mice. So, I'm unsure if Simpkin was singing this part here. If he was, I did it in a mouse voice. Oh, scratch, scratch! Scuffled Simpkin on the window sill, while the little mice sprang to their feet, and all began to shout at once in little twittering voices. No more twist! No more twist! They barred up the window shutters and shut out Simpkin. But still, through the nicks in the shutters, he could hear the voice of Thimbles and little mouses singing, no more twist, no more twist, no more twist, no more twist. Simpkin came away from the shop and went home, considering... Oh, here's a larger image of a throstle bird. See, here at the Jessa Channel, you can listen to a book. You can have some nice jazz. You can be in your jammies and learn about birds. Here's a bigger one. Oh, look at that. Yeah, my husband is a very big bird enthusiast. He had a bird book when he was a boy, and he had it entirely memorized. And, well, he insisted it was only mostly memorized. His sister insisted he had it entirely memorized. To the point where you could give him a page and he would tell you what bird and do the bird call of the bird that was on that page. Anyway, I'll have to show him this. I think he would like that. But yeah, I don't think we have birds that look quite like this here. So pretty with their black eyes. Okay. Oh, thank you, Muse. I've been singing a lot. Beatrix Potter has a lot of songs in it. We've listened already to the Tale of Peter Rabbit. We listened to Squirrel Nutkin. I sang as a squirrel, and now I'm singing as a mouse. Did you tell me already whether you're in your jammies yet, Muse? Okay, so, Simpkin went home, considering in his mind. He found the poor old tailor without fever, sleeping peacefully. Yay! Then Simpkin went on tiptoe and took a little parcel of silk out of the teapot and looked at it in the moonlight. That's the twist, Simpkin. You'd better give it back. And he felt quite ashamed of his badness compared with those good little mice. As well you should, Simpkin. You were quite rude. When the tailor awoke in the morning, the first thing he saw upon the patchwork quilt was a skein of cherry-colored twisted silk, and beside his bed stood the repentant Simpkin. Ah, yay! See, look, there's Simpkin thinking over his bad deeds. Alack, I am worn to a ravelling, said the Tailor of Gloucester, but I have my twist. The sun was shining on the snow when the tailor got up and dressed and came out into the street with Simpkin running before him. The starlings whistled on the chimney stacks. The throstles and the robins sang, but they sang their own little noises, not like the words they had sung in the night. Oh, I asked you if you had pajamas on. If you were cozy in your pajamas yet. Alack, said the tailor, I have my twist, but no more strength, no time, than will serve to make me one single buttonhole, for this is Christmas Day in the morning. The mayor of Gloucester shall be merry by noon, and wears his cherry-colored coat. He unlocked the door of the little shop in Westgate Street, and Simpkin ran in like a cat that expects something. But there was no one there, not even one little brown mouse. The boards were swept clean, the little ends of thread and the little silk snippets were all tidied away and gone from off the floor. Yeah, well, hopefully this is going to relax you a little bit, Muse. But upon the table, oh joy! The tailor gave a shout. Woo! There he had left plain cuttings of silk, and there lay the most beautifulest coat and embroidered satin waistcoat that had ever were worn by a mayor of Gloucester. Look at it. Simpkin climbs up and he touches it with his paw. Look at him. It's beautiful. Beautiful. There were roses and pansies upon the facings of the coat, and the waistcoat was worked with poppies and cornflowers. Everything was finished, except just one single cherry-colored buttonhole, and where that buttonhole was wanting, there was pinned a scrap of paper with these words in little teeny writing: No more twist. And from then on began the luck of the Tailor of Gloucester. He grew quite stout, and he grew quite rich, for he had made the most wonderful waistcoats for all the rich merchants of Gloucester, and all the fine gentlemen of the country round. Never were seen such ruffles, or such embroidered cuffs and lappets. But his buttonholes were the greatest triumph of all. The stitches of those buttonholes were so neat, so neat. I wonder how they could be stitched by an old man in spectacles with crooked old fingers and a tailor's thimble. The stitches of those buttonholes were so small, so small they looked as if they had been made by little mice. Oh, that was lovely. Yay! You see in the last picture? Yeah, Muse, I made sure when I decided to do this morning, I made sure to get an EPUB with a version with the pictures in it, because the illustrations just make the whole thing. Yep. So you have here the pictures, and once again, these illustrations were all done by Beatrix Potter herself. Wasn't that nice, Benny? And I love that the tailor got nice and rich. And you know what? Who else got fat and stout? Simkin. Simkin ended his days as a very fat, very happy cat. He had cream every morning. He had sausages for lunch. And he decided that he didn't really want to eat the mice anymore. So, because, he knew what they had done. So he decided that he was going to go on a mice-free diet. So he's had, and the tailor was so happy for him to not eat up his best employees, that the tailor got him fresh mince pie, meat minced pie, every day for dinner. Every day. Thank you, mothering. Okay, we're gonna do one more. Oh, this is good. I love it. It's like so exciting. I'm like, ooh, this is the best one. So this is the tale of Benjamin Bunny. And it was first published by Frederick and Warren and Company in September of 1904. The book is a sequel to The Tale of Peter Rabbit. So we're going to end with a nice... we started with Peter Rabbit, and we'll end with the sequel tonight. And it was printed in the last few months of 1904. Her publisher, recognizing that they were sitting on a gold mine, probably, wanted The Tale of Benjamin Bunny to be her next work because Peter Rabbit was so very popular. This is an interesting part. During the summer of 1903, Potter went to Cumbria with her parents and stayed at Fowl Park in Chiswick. I believe that's how you say that, Chiswick. I don't think it's Chiswick. I think it's Chiswick. She sketched the estate's gardens, including greenhouses and potting sheds. And this holiday resulted in her moving Mr. McGregor's garden from the Perthshire setting in The Tale of Peter Rabbit to the Lake District for The Tale of Benjamin Bunny and The Tale of Mr. Todd. Hello, Princess. Yeah, I like this one too. This is the one where the babies eat lettuce, I think, and which is a soporific. The word I'm saying is soporific. Thank you, Steve. How long have you been here? Well, because I think you're new to the Jessa Channel, so welcome. Feel free to subscribe, and you can join us because I will be reading stories from time to time. And I'm so glad. I hope you enjoyed it. It is Chiswick. Thank you, Kyrian. So I am saying soporific, which is a word that I learned from this story. It means food, or I don't know if it's just food, but something that makes you sleepy. Soporific. Now, this is going to show the Lake District, which Beatrix Potter eventually moved to the Lake District and lived the rest of her life there. And I've been to the Lake District. It's amazing. It is so beautiful, the Lake District in England. And I'm so blessed to have had a chance to go there. I have vivid memories of it being so green. Because, where I live now in the Pacific Northwest, we have a lot of green. A lot of green. But it's different. It's different. The air is different there. The green is different. I don't know. Anyway. So, the story has been criticized for being weak and lacking the vitality and inventiveness of Potter's earlier works. This loss of creativity has been attributed to her diminishing interest in the Peter Rabbit saga. The Peter Rabbit saga? I don't understand how one book is a saga, but I don't know, whatever, okay. But her illustrations of rabbits and of the country landscape have continued to be praised for their charm and precision. Agreed. So, let's see if I can, nope, let's see, there we go. Okay, so The Tale of Benjamin Bunny by Beatrix Potter. Yeah, the Peter Rabbit saga. It starts up there with the Lord of the Rings. Yeah, exactly. Like, you know, my top sagas, like, it's like Lord of the Rings, the Star Wars trilogy, the Peter Rabbit book. Those are intense, amazing fiction, some of the finest that's ever been put on paper. Deeply moving throughout the whole thing. Like when Peter had to hide in that water carrion, that just moved me. I think that really made me who I am today. Absolutely. You feel what I'm saying, Muse? Do you feel that? You know, that Peter Rabbit story can really, you know, I mean, it's just changed lives. Exactly. People don't understand, but I'm glad I'm with like-minded people. The Tale of Benjamin Bunny. Muse is like, speak the truth, girl. So interesting. Look at this. There's a typo right here. This says tale, and the tale of Peter Rabbit is not his tail, it's a story tale. T-A-L-E. So that's a mistake there. The Tale of Benjamin Bunny. That's what mothering does all the time. She does that when we're just being silly and having a good old time. She's just like, you guys. For the Children of Sorry from Old Mr. Bunny. And I believe Sorry is a place in the Lake District. Is that correct, Carrie? I think so. So this says Josephine Bunny, licensed to sell tea and tobacco. Tobacco. How naughty. But of course, you know, some of the older rabbits really like to have a bit of baccy in their pipe. You know, once you put the kids to bed, and after you fed them their bread and blackberry currant, and you've put them to bed with a story, you like to sit around while the missus knits, and you have a little bit of baccy in your pipe. You know, I'm not going to judge. Thank you, Carrion. Oh, here we go. Get ready to be moved, y'all. One morning, a little rabbit sat on a bank. He pricked his ears and listened to the trit-trot of a pony. The gig was coming along the road. It was driven by Mr. McGregor, and beside him sat Mrs. McGregor in her best bonnet. Well, you know what that means when Mrs. McGregor is in her best bonnet. I won't ruin it for you. Spoiler alert. As soon as they had passed, little Benjamin Bunny slid down onto the ground and set off with a hop, skip, and a jump to call upon his relations who lived in the wood at the back of Mr. McGregor's garden. The wood was full of rabbit holes, and in the neatest, sandiest hole of all lived Benjamin's aunt and his cousins, Flopsy, Mopsy, Cottontail, and Peter. Old Mrs. Rabbit was a widow. She earned her living by knitting rabbit wool mittens and muffetees. That's so interesting, muffetees. I think those are the things you stick your hands into. Muffetees. I think that's an old-fashioned word for those muffler-type round things that women would stick their hands in to keep them warm. She also sold herbs, rosemary tea, I've never had rosemary tea, so I don't really know what to hear. And rabbit tobacco, which is what we call lavender. Oh, it's just lavender? Oh, okay. All right, I can jump off my judgment horse now. I love this image right here of her hard at work because she has babies to keep. Little Benjamin did not very much want to see his aunt. He came round the back of the fir tree and nearly tumbled upon the top of his cousin Peter. Look at Peter's ears sticking out. Here's little Peter. Here's little ears. He's so cute. Peter was sitting by himself. He looked poorly and was dressed in a red cotton pocket handkerchief. "Well, what's the matter, Peter?" "Peter," said little Benjamin in a whisper, "who has got your clothes?" Peter replied, "The scarecrow in Mr. McGregor's garden," and described how he had been chased about the garden and had dropped his shoes and coat. Little Benjamin sat down beside his cousin and assured him that Mr. McGregor had gone out in a gig, and Mrs. McGregor also, and certainly for the day, because she was wearing her best bonnet. See, that's what I didn't want to spoil for you. We know that when she's wearing her best bonnet, she's going to the market. I know it was a cliffhanger, and I let it hang there for you guys for a while, but now we know. Morgan is saying that muffetees are tube-like fingerless mitts that cover the wrist and hand up to the middle of the fingers. Oh, okay, interesting. Usually with an opening along the side for the thumb. Oh. I don't think that's a common word anymore in England. I've never heard of it. I mean, not that I'm in England at any time recently, but still. I never hear of anybody saying, "You know what, darling, I can't find my muffetee. Did you put it is it behind the couch?" Basically fingerless mittens. Okay. Peter said let's go back and read that again. Okay. Little Benjamin sat down beside his cousin and assured him that Mr. McGregor had gone out in a gig, and Mrs. McGregor also, and certainly for the day, because she was wearing her best bonnet. Peter said he hoped it would rain. Because Peter is kind of a mean little rabbit, and he was mad still at Mr. and Mrs. McGregor, so he hoped that it would rain and that their trip would be ruined and her hat would be ruined. At this point, old Mrs. Rabbit's voice was heard from inside the hole, calling, "Cottontail, Cottontail, fetch more chamomile." Peter said he thought he might feel better if he went for a walk. They went away hand in hand and got upon the flat top of the wall at the bottom of the wood, and from here they looked down into Mr. McGregor's garden. Peter's coat and shoes were plainly to be seen upon the scarecrow, topped with an old tam-o'-shanter of Mr. McGregor's. I like tam-o'-shanters. Excuse me. Little Benjamin said, "It spoils people's clothes to squeeze under a gate. The proper way to get in is to climb down a pear tree." Peter fell down head first, but it was of no consequence as the bed below was newly raked and quite soft. Look at, there's Peter falling down from a tree. Poor guy, but it's okay. They left a great many odd little footmarks all over the bed, especially little Benjamin, who was wearing clogs. That's so cool. Little Benjamin said that the first thing to be done was to get back Peter's clothes, in order that they might be able to use the pocket handkerchief. They took them off the scarecrow. It had been raining during the night, and there was water in the shoes, and the coat was somewhat shrunk. Benjamin tried on the tam-o'-shanter, but it was too big for him. That's Benjamin pouring water out of Peter's shoes. Then Peter suggested that they fill the pocket handkerchief with onions as a little present for his aunt. Peter did not seem to be enjoying himself. He kept hearing noises because he was scared, because he had had the time of his life and it was terrible. Gripping. Benjamin, on the contrary, was perfectly at home and ate a lettuce leaf. He said that he was in the habit of coming to the garden with his father to get lettuces for their Sunday dinner. The name of little Benjamin's papa was old Mr. Benjamin Bunny. The lettuces were certainly very fine. Peter did not eat anything. He said he should like to go home. Presently he dropped half the onions, because he was a bit skittish. Look at the little mouse family. Oh. Little Benjamin said that it was not possible to get back up the pear tree with a load of vegetables. He led the way boldly across to the other end of the garden. They went along a little walk on planks under a sunny red brick wall. The mice sat on their doorsteps cracking cherry stones. They winked at Peter Rabbit and little Benjamin Bunny. Presently Peter let the pocket handkerchief go again. Oh, Peter! Really, you're so troublesome. They got amongst flower pots and frames and tubs. Peter heard noises worse than ever. His eyes were as big as lollipops. He was a step or two in front of his cousin when he suddenly stopped. Uh-oh. This is what those little rabbits saw around that corner. Little Benjamin took one look, and then in half a minute, less than no time, he hid himself and Peter and the onions underneath a large basket. The cat got up and stretched herself and came and sniffed at the basket. Perhaps she liked the smell of onions. Anyway, she sat down upon the top of the basket. Oh, I love this picture of this kitty. My kitty Lila's tail is like that. So sweet. She's got a little collar on. She sat there for 5 hours. Let me just break that down for you. That's like way past lunch, way past tea time, and coming up on dinner. That's 2 little, very, very hungry rabbits with nothing to eat but some raw onions and stuck under there with a bad attitude. You know what I'm talking about? That's what I call a rough day. Difficult, you know, and I really feel for these boys because, you know, they're cute. I cannot draw you a picture of Peter and Benjamin underneath the basket because it was quite dark and because the smell of onions was fearful and it made Peter Rabbit and little Benjamin cry. The sun got round behind the wood, and can you imagine missing their tea and lunch and 11s? It's more than a body can bear. The sun got round behind the wood, and it was quite late in the afternoon, but still the cat sat upon the basket. At length there was a pitter-patter, and some bits of mortar fell from the wall above. Uh-oh, Daddy's here. You better start making up a big old fat tall tale to explain how you got your butt stuck under there. Because Daddy is here and Daddy does not play. The cat looked up and saw old Mr. Benjamin Bunny prancing along the top of the wall of the upper terrace. Just wait till Daddy comes home. He was smoking a pipe of rabbit tobacco and had a little switch in his hand. Uh-oh. He was looking for his son. Mr. Bunny had no opinion whatever of cats. He took a tremendous jump off the top of the wall into the top of the cat and cuffed it off the basket and kicked it into the greenhouse. Oh, goodness, that's mean. Mr. Bunny, don't be mean. The cat was too much surprised to scratch back. Uh-oh. Child endangerment. I'm going to just say, for those of you who are more of delicate sensibilities like me, not to look at this part because it might be a little traumatizing. But basically, let's just put it straight. Benjamin got the spanking of his life. When old Mr. Bunny but he did it with love because he was very upset because he put himself in a very difficult situation Benjamin Bunny had. And Mr. Bunny was not having that because he had raised Benjamin Bunny to be a very good rabbit and to not behave like his naughty cousin Peter. And he said that with every word of the switch. Then he came back to the basket and took his son Benjamin out by the ears and whipped him with the little switch. And then he took out his nephew Peter and he took out the handkerchief of onions and marched out of the garden. I mean, look at that man. That is a man who is in charge of his family. Look at him. He's just like, look, his eyes are all like, all part of a day's work and raising some naughty, nappy-headed children. And when your mom was reading it to you, Heather, she would point at that part right here and be like, you don't want that to happen, so you're gonna be a good girl, right, Heather? And you're like, yes, mommy, because you don't want daddy to come into the garden and pull you out and give you a switching. And you were like, no, mommy. But he locked the cat in the greenhouse, which I think is really, I think that was a bit much of Mr. Bunny. He could have just told the cat to stay in there for a little bit while he spanked the heck out of his little boys. Anyway, they went home, and you can see their ears are all down and they're holding their bottoms because they just got a nasty old spanking. When old Mr. Bunny, oh wait, no, here we go. When Mr. McGregor returned about half an hour later, because Mrs. McGregor forgot her purse at home, so he was like, oh baby, do we have to go home? And she was like, yeah, because I forgot my purse. And so I can't go to the market without my purse. And especially because my hat looks all pretty like this, and what if it flies off and I need my Afro pick? And he was like, all right, fine, let's just go home. So when Mr. McGregor returned about half an hour later, he observed several things which perplexed him. It looked as though some person had been walking all over the garden in a pair of clogs. Only the footmarks were too ridiculously little. And also he could not understand how the cat could have managed to shut herself up inside the greenhouse, locking the door upon the outside. When Peter got home, his mother forgave him because she was so glad to see that he had found his shoes and coat, because she was a widow and she had to go to the food stamp office twice a week, and it was very embarrassing and very troublesome, and she had to keep those poor children on food stamps and prayer. And so, you know what, getting those clothes back was worth it, and so she didn't give him a spanking. Cottontail and Peter folded up the pucker handkerchief, and old Mrs. Rabbit strung up the onions and hung them from the kitchen ceiling with the bunches of herbs and the rabbit tobacco. Now, she did turn those onions into a lovely onion omelet thing, because the next week, Mr. Benjamin Bunny went off to the farm and he stole an egg right out from a couple of chickens. And it was enough to feed like the whole, like pretty much most of the rabbit province. So, you know, Mrs. Rabbit, she put her onions in that. And they had a lovely party. They did. Heather's like, I got a lot of timeouts. Yeah, this is written before things like timeouts and stuff. This is when you just took a switch off a tree and gave your kid a healthy spanking and put him to bed. Anyway, child endangerment. So let's see what the next one is. Ooh, The Tale of Two Bad Mice. This one has a dollhouse in it. So the one I thought that we were gonna read was with the soporific was not the same story I remembered, so we'll have to read that next time. Oh, my daddy did that to me, Morgwin, too, to all of us, yeah. They made you go out and get the switch. And pick one that was really green, so it would whiz through the air with that horrible noise. Yeah. Yep, you too, Bene. That's a common thing. I don't know about anymore, but it was very common for parents who were from the South, who were in the South or from the South. That was a common way to raise your nappy-headed children. Yep. Terrible thing to do, actually. It's very terrifying for a child, and I would definitely not advocate that kind of raising of a child nowadays, but, you know. I'm old and can look at it somewhat nostalgically in a kind of bitter way. Yeah. Parenting was really very intense when I was growing up. I know Bene knows what I'm talking about, especially in the African American community. Hitting your child. I mean, not only would your parents hit you, but the neighbors would hit you. If they caught you, they could perfectly well give you the switch. Or the ladies from church. Yep. Yep. Not good. It's not a good thing. I do not recommend it, but it's what happened. You know, it would be pretty shocking nowadays. I bet it goes on still in some places in the South. Okay, so, we're gonna read one more story. I said one more, but I lied. Let's do one more. But then after that, I am definitely gonna stop. Because we've been going for a little while. Got the slipper. What is that? Get spanked with a slipper? That sounds much more pleasant than a switch. They would tell on you, Bene. I remember when you would be down the street thinking that you were getting away with some stuff, and the neighbors would go down and tell your mother, and your mother would come get you. Oh my goodness. Yeah, basically. Thank you, mothering. Yeah, pretty much anything was preferable to switching. So, the tale of two bad mice. These are two mice that are probably going to end up with a switching themselves, to come think of it. Oh, getting the strap in school. Yeah, I heard that was very common in schools. I learned that from Miss Reed books. They'd have this headmaster, and you would get a strapping in school. Goodness. So, Norman Warren married Beatrix Potter, and unfortunately, he didn't marry her, because before a marriage could take place, he died. He was his great love. This sounds like a pretty bad thing to die of. Pernicious anemia. What is that? Pernicious anemia. Anemia. What did your man die of? Pernicious anemia. Morgwin. Morgwin, next time you see your mom, tell her I like her. All these stories of how your mom would put up, my mom was like that too. She was like, her words were like, don't make me come over there. Because if I come over there, you're going to be very, very sorry that I came over there. Do you see me in this chair? Do you see me in this chair? Do not make me get out of this chair. Because if I get out of this chair, you're going to very much wish I stayed in this chair. Go outside. Just go outside. Go outside before you drive me to drink. That's what she was saying. Go outside. And she would put us outside and then lock the door so we couldn't come back in for hours. We'd say, we're thirsty. Drink out of the hose. It's true. But we were so naughty. Children are naughty. Isn't it true, Bene? They just can't help it because they're children. And I know I know the word is pronounced children, but I prefer to say children. Because when they naughty little nappy-headed children, that's what they are. Okay, so kids be crazy. The Tale of Two Bad Mice by Beatrix Potter. Ooh, your mom was the best. Your mom wins mothering. Okay, so I like this one because it has a dollhouse in it. And when I was very young, we were very poor. Very, very poor. So I didn't get a dollhouse. What I had for a dollhouse, Benny, tell me if you had the same thing. I had a shoebox. And that was my dollhouse. I had a shoebox and I had one Barbie doll. And in my imagination, and I think this is one of the reasons why I love The Sims 2 so much, that in my imagination, that shoe house became a country cottage. It became a penthouse. At one point, I could even tell you, like in that shoebox, like there were different areas, like there was the eat-in kitchen, the full-length windows that looked out over Manhattan. When it was a cottage, it had a beautiful garden out in the back. And I would put my doll in there and I'd be like, okay, come on, Barbie, we're going to go make some dinner. And I'd make some dinner and I would we would just use things like a wooden block or whatever I had to pretend to be the counters, or I would just pretend there were counters there. And I think that's one of the ways that I developed such a good imagination, because I had you had two shoe boxes? Oh, you were big time. See, I was poorer than Benny. She had two shoe boxes. I had one. And I had to make that shoebox last. It was true. Oh, goodness. And my Barbie. Anyway, I'm getting off the track. I'll read the book, because that's what we're here to listen to and not my childhood stories. But, yeah, I knew that Benny could relate. Once upon a time, there was a beautiful doll's house. It was red brick with white windows and had real muslin curtains, a front door, and a chimney. I would have sold my right arm, left arm. I'd sold every limb I had for a dollhouse like that. I would have killed for a dollhouse like that. Anyway, it belonged to two dolls called Lucinda and Jane. At least, it belonged to Lucinda, but she never ordered meals. Jane was the cook, but she never did any cooking because dinner had been brought ready-made in a box full of shavings. Wow, they had actual dinner. That's so impressive. There were 2 red lobsters and a ham, a fish, a pudding, and some pears and oranges. They would not come off the plates, but they were extremely beautiful. One morning, Lucinda and Jane had gone out for a drive in the doll's perambulator. There was no one in the nursery, and it was very quiet. Presently, there was a little scuffling and scratching noise in a corner near the fireplace where there was a hole under the skirting board. Tom Thumb put out his head for a moment and popped it in again. Tom Thumb was a mouse. Look at that. Look at Tom Thumb. It looks like there's 2 mice here. 2 eyes, 2 sets of eyes there. Another one sticking through the skirting board. Yep. A minute afterwards, Hunca Munca, his wife, put her head out too. Hunca Munca is such a great name. And when she saw there was no one in the nursery, she ventured out onto the oilcloth under the coal box. The doll's house stood at the other side of the fireplace. Tom Thumb, I think there's a spelling mistake there, and Hunca Munca went cautiously across the hearthrug. They pushed the front door. It was not fast. Tom Thumb and Hunca Munca went upstairs and peeped into the dining room, and then they squeaked with joy. Such a lovely dinner was laid out upon the table. There were 10 spoons and lead knives and forks and 2 dolly chairs, all so convenient. Tom Thumb set out to work at once to carve the ham. It was a beautiful shiny yellow streaked with red. The knife crumpled up and hurt him. He put his finger in his mouth. "It is not boiled enough. It is hard. You have a try, Hunca-Munca." My sister built her own dollhouse out of scraps of wood. Oh, nice. Yeah, I wouldn't have known how to begin to do that or even known how to ask my mother for that. But that's smart. That would have so much more meaning if you built it yourself. I'm impressed with your sister. Hunca-Munca stood up on her chair and chopped at the ham with another lead knife. "It's as hard as the hams at the cheesemongers," said Hunca-Munca. The ham broke off the plate with a jerk and rolled under the table. "Let it alone," said Tom Thumb. "Give me some fish, Hunca-Munca." These mice are very rude, just walking into someone's house and helping themselves to dinner. Hunca-Munca tried every tin spoon in turn. The fish was glued to the dish. Then Tom Thumb lost his temper. He put the ham in the middle of the floor and hit it with the tongs and with the shovel. Bang, bang, smash, smash. All right, Tom, you and I are going to have words. Some choice words. The ham flew all into pieces, for underneath the shiny paint it was made of nothing but plaster. There was no end to the rage and disappointment of Tom Thumb and Hunca-Munca. They broke up the pudding, the lobsters, the pears, and the oranges. "Oh no, not the oranges, not the oranges. Please, madam, spare the oranges. No, not them." If you can find an old picture of it, Patrick, post it on Twitter for me. Send it to me on Twitter. I'd like to see that. As the fish would not come off the plate, they put it into the red-hot, crinkly paper fire in the kitchen, but it wouldn't burn either. Tom Thumb went up the chimney and looked out the top. There was no soot. I know, these mice are just so rude. Benet's like, "Team Mice, Team Tom Thumb." I guess gotta put that in. While Tom Thumb was up the chimney, I love it how they're looking out of the window. He just went straight up the chimney. Hunca-Munca had another disappointment. She found some tiny canisters upon the dresser labeled rice, coffee, Saga. Sago. Anybody know what sago is? But when she turned them upside down, there was nothing inside except red and blue beads. You know what? That's just a ripoff. If I go into somebody's house to steal all their food, there better actually be food in the food to steal. I would get very upset about that. Then these mice set to work to do all the mischief they could, especially Tom Thumb. He took Jane's clothes out of the chest of drawers in her bedroom and he threw them out of the top floor window. Oh, well. But Hunca-Munca had a frugal mind. After pulling half of the feathers out of Lucinda's bolster, she remembered that she herself was in want of a feather bed. With Tom Thumb's assistance, she carried the bolster downstairs and across the hearthrug. It was difficult to squeeze the bolster into the mouse hole. They managed it somehow. Sago, edible starch that is obtained from a palm tree in certain parts of the tropics. The pith inside the trunk is scraped out. Oh, interesting. Cool. Thanks, Heather. That's why I love reading these books, because we learn something. I've said that already, but we learn as we go. Then Hunca-Munca went back and fetched a chair, a bookcase, a birdcage. Look at her just robbing the place blind. A birdcage, several small odds and ends. The bookcase and the birdcage refuse to go into the mouse hole. Yeah, rice, coffee, sago. So yeah, flour. There's tapioca over here and currants. I know that currants in England are raisins. Hunca-Munca left them behind the coal box and went to fetch a cradle. Because, you know, Hunca-Munca was hoping to start a family someday. And teach them important values like not to steal. Hunca-Munca was just returning with another chair when suddenly there was a noise of talking outside upon the landing. The mice rushed back in their hole. They were like, "Ooh, girl, quick, we're gonna get caught. We're gonna get caught. Go, go. Slide into the Cadillac. Let's go." The dolls came into the nursery. What a sight met the eyes of Jane and Lucinda. Lucinda sat upon the upset kitchen stove and stared. Wow, the dolls have been robbed blind. Jane leaned against the kitchen dresser and smiled, but neither of them made any remark. I love this line right here, because that's all dolls can do. Like all she can do is lean against the kitchen dresser and smile. That was very clever of Beatrix. But neither of them made any remark because they are dolls. They can't speak. The bookcase and the birdcage were rescued from under the coal box, but Hunca-Munca has got the cradle and some of Lucinda's clothes. See, look at Hunca-Munca raising her baby in a stolen cradle. Imbibing that kid with all kinds of poor judgment. She also has some useful pots and pans and several other things. Here's what I want. I want there to be a wrap up to this, a sequel in which the dolls get their own back, and they sneak into the mouse hole wearing all black with like black around their eyes. They sneak in there at night and they totally slap Hunca-Munca upside the head and steal their crate back. That is a sequel I would pay for. She also, let's see, the little girl that the doll's house belonged to said, "I will get a doll dressed like a policeman." But the nurse said, "I will set a mousetrap." So that is the story of the two bad mice. But they were not so very naughty after all, because Tom Thumb paid for everything he broke. Oh, he did? Oh, okay, all right, well that's better. The rodent version of Bonnie and Clyde. See, that's what happened. See, they were caught at the scene, you know, so they took off, you know, and they dived in all Dukes of Hazzard style into the windows of the Cadillac, you know what I mean? And Tom Thumb was like one hand on the wheel, you know, and giving the copper the well, I don't want to be too rude, a rude gesture. We're still trying to be somewhat family friendly here. And they went off down the street, and you can't see me because I don't have my webcam on today, but I'm actually making the motion of diving into a Cadillac through the window, Duke of Hazzard style, grabbing the steering wheel, and then like Tom Thumb, they had an 8-track in it. It had an 8-track player, so he put on some James Brown and turned it up really loud, you know what I mean? And they peeled back into their mouse hole, just peeled into there like crazy people. You know what I think? Here's what I think. And I want you guys to we're going to keep this amongst ourselves. But I have a theory, right? Here it is. Hunca-Munca was already pregnant. Because you notice that she had that baby kind of quick after they, you know, when they got together. And I didn't want to say anything about it when she told me that she was expecting. But I was like, you know. Anyway, so Hunca-Munca, she got Tom Thumb to marry her on because he was kind of a bad boy, you know. He was the one who would always walk around with a leather jacket. So, you know, and he had a temper, but she thought that true love would save him. You know what I'm saying, Heather? You hear? She's with me. Anyway, So I think that girl was a little bit loose and had something on the side. Anyway, so that baby, because I mean, just look at that baby. Look at the look. See this baby up here? See this baby right here? Now look at Tom Thumb. Don't look a thing like him. Not a thing. Totally different ears. See, he's got his mother's, but his nose don't have his nose. So everybody knows. Nobody wanted to say anything though. So anyway, once Tom saw that baby and he was like, that baby is not mine. And she was like, no, honey, it is. And so anyway, Tom said, you know what? I'm gonna turn over a new leaf. And even though I know good and well between you and me that baby I think that baby looks exactly like the milk mouse. Exactly. Anyway, Tom decided that he was gonna turn over a new leaf because he was tired of, because what had being a bad mouse really gotten him? A backwards wife, a baby that didn't look anything like him, and he got kicked out of the bar one too many times and they wouldn't let him go back, and he wrecked his Cadillac the next week. So, you know what? Here's what happened. He turned over a new leaf and he said, so that is the story of the two bad mice. But they were not so very, very naughty after all, because Tom Thumb paid for everything he broke because he turned over a new leaf and found Jesus. He found a crooked sixpence under the hearthrug, and upon Christmas Eve, he and Hunca Munca stuffed it into one of the stockings of Lucinda and Jane. They had put their stockings on the end of the bed because they didn't want them to be stolen by some backwards mice with a broke Cadillac. Anyway, and very early every morning, before anybody is awake, Hunca Munca makes up for the fact that that baby is not his by coming in with her dustpan and her broom to sweep the Dolly's house. So everything worked out in the end. And what did we learn from this, children? Okay, so I have a new thing that we're gonna do that just because we're gonna keep doing this. We're gonna keep reading Beatrix Potter, and I'm gonna read the story as is, but I'm gonna add my extra little flavor to it. It's gonna be Beatrix Potter via the ghetto. Well, if you can get away with it, and they did. But they turned over new leaves, and the next baby was actually his. And they ended up having what? I think I lost count at about 16 or 18 of them kids. One of them went off to be the headmaster. One of them went off to be the policeman. Took over this guy's job. This guy retired and moved to the Lake District. So yeah. All right, well, I'll do that next time we do Beatrix Potter. The next one up is going to be the tale of Mrs. Tiggy-Winkle, which I cannot read tonight because I need to meander on with my evening, and we've been live streaming for a while now. I'm going to let's see here. Escape. No. Want to F11. There we go. And you guys can take a look at my desktop. While I say goodbye to you all. Thank you so much for joining me for this one. This was good. And we streamed for about 2 hours. So we will do another one of these soon, in a few days or next week. We'll do some more Beatrix Potter, Circa the Ghetto. Right on through the ghetto. We're going to take Beatrix Potter down. Beatrix Potter does Compton. Yep. And also, by the way, one more present for you, Heather, before we end this live stream. And by the way, if you enjoyed this, please feel free to hit the thumbs up button below. And if you loved it, join the party and subscribe. You can also join me as a patron. of which Heather is a patron, and because she is a patron, I'm giving her a special birthday stream today. Mothering is like, girl, only you. Only you can take Beatrix Potter and send her to LA. It's my special talent, mothering. Anyway, Heather, here we go. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Heather. Happy birthday to you. Yay! Happy birthday, Heather! If you want me to sing happy birthday to you, become a patron and have a birthday. And I will sing happy birthday to you too. All right, you guys, I will leave you with our finished thing here, and I will see you again in the next live stream. We'll be live streaming again on Friday. So I will see you in a couple of days. Bye. Yes, also become a patron and make me promise not to sing happy birthday to you. And you can also do that too. For $3 a month, I will promise to never sing you happy birthday. Bye, Princess. Bye, Mothering. Bye, Morgan. Bye, Kyrian. Bye, Heather. Bye, Patrick. Bye. I'm missing somebody up here. Mothering and somebody else was up here earlier. And Bene and I can't remember who else. So, anyway. Oh, Muse. Muse was in here earlier. Yep, that's what I was trying to remember. All right, I'll see you guys all soon. Have a great evening. Bye-bye.